first guest today is a very long-time friend of mine, confidant, a colleague, and a longtime Ateam member. I want to introduce you to Mr. Jason Benedicic.
Good
Jason,
morning, Nick.
Thank you so much for joining us today, man.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Back in Vegas, first time since 2019.
Wow.
So it's been a few years now. We've been to some other events together, but being back at Insight, really special.
Yeah.
You know, friends, family, technology, and my favorite thing today, hardware.
Hardware.
Yeah.
We got to talk about hardware. We had a lot of conversations around AI. You've got an extended segment here with me, so we're going to get into a lot of this stuff today, first thing in the morning. You brought it up, hardware. Let's run down what we've kind of the last 2 years, and we're going to talk about this more with the great Mr. Chris Luth next. He's going to be coming back and joining the show.
Perfect, right.
But I really want to hear your thoughts on just the last 2 years. So the introduction of C-Series, the reemergence of the ASA, then this past, that was all both in 2023.
Yeah.
Then this May, we came back with the all-new A7, the A-Series AFFs, and now we have an updated ASA that's using that same hardware platform as the updated A-Series. As the portfolio sits today, and I didn't even mention the new storage grid stuff, right? There's so many other things to go over, but the portfolio has not been this up-to-date and this refreshed in as long as I can remember, all at once, like just in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's a really good position to be in, right? So we've got more demand for on-premises storage the last few years as well, so I think you're moving with that trend. The way that things have worked, we've had a decade or more of people moving workloads to the cloud, and there was a lot of focus on the cloud, and that's okay. But now we're moving into an era of workloads that don't need just the cloud. We've got AI, and there was a big topic on AI yesterday, like lots of talking points. But as you move those kind of workloads, or as you start to build out those kind of workloads, you need performant, low latency, storage that is where your apps are, where your data is, where your GPUs are. You can't always get those in the cloud. You might have to, you might want to build your training infrastructure on premises, and you need all sorts of different storage for that. And NetApp has been quietly chipping away, building out the range. They took the time on things. So let's start with the C-Series, right? You weren't first to market in that area. There are other people doing more on QLC and everything else, but some of those early solutions weren't really ready or didn't understand what the longevity, that's the word I was thinking, the longevity of QLC would be, right? So there was a lot of concern at the start. But you took the time to look into it, to do it properly, to build that out. And the C-Series has got a really good sweet spot, hits of that, performance is, it's there for, it's on par with your spinning disk performance. But much higher density. You get better latency than that. And that's a huge segment because there's still people that need that for cold data, for, backups and all those other things as well. Also, tiering, because we've got, ONTAP S3 now, and that's coming just the last few years, that's been there as well.
Where does the cloud come into this picture, though? Because I think that's one of the big talking points is it's great that we have all of that stuff, and it is so versatile across capacity, performance, and any other vectors like that. But then, as you were saying, you introduce cloud that gives you sort of instant access to some of these pay-as-you-go resources that you don't really have to sit in line for, waiting for them to be shipped and things like that. It's literally you click a button and all of a sudden you've got a GPU and CPU instance that you can throw a bunch of compute at. How has that changed the way that people buy storage, let's just say over the last 5 or 6 years, specifically around storage? Because I think that moving the compute to the cloud has influenced and frankly influenced how people are deterring buying physical systems on-prem. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of the downslope. We're seeing from the analyst community that we might be in that downturn a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, for that, we want to go back a little bit as well. And you look at some of the origins of the cloud, some of the original times. If you look at how hardware was in the origin of the cloud, a decade or so ago, a bit longer, I would say, and I'm not 100% on this, but let's say the average core count would be 4 to 6 in a CPU.
Sure.
We have CPUs now with 128 cores, some of the AMD ones. You've got ARM have got massive core density. Intel, massive core density again. So we've had a big change that has led to some of that downturn, I think it was. Not necessarily a downturn, but some of that changing behavior.
Yeah.
Right? But so when we talk about when I talk about this with customers about the cloud, the important thing is speed to market, right? And so there are those trade-offs. If I've got a really tight deadline, I've got a new project, I'm not sure where it's going to go, I might not want to make a huge investment. I might just want to say, okay, I'm going to do this proof of concept. I'm going to see if this works out. I'm going to go get some CPU. I'm going to get some GPU. I'm going to get some storage in the cloud. It's nice and simple. Credit card, quick, up and running, no problems, right? That's great. That's where it comes in. Innovation, speed, bursting, right? Oh, I don't have time to wait for some more storage to arrive. I'll just use some in the cloud. And that's where NetApp have had the real leading offering here, in that it's just on tap everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I need
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. You know, it's like, okay, I can get that. I can get some data from my on-premises into the cloud. I can work with it, whether it's a new AI project, whether it's any other project, or I'm doing EDA workloads, and I've got a new project spin up, and I need just some more capacity.
Yeah.
But it's only a short-term thing. I'm not going to go and buy some more hardware.
Yeah, the beauty of ONTAP, since you brought that up, is like it moves. It doesn't matter what the underlying platform is a lot of the times. It can be in the cloud, it can be at the edge, it can be on-prem, or all of the above. And the beauty is like all of the flex and snap words still work no matter where you are. The same command lines, commands still work.
Yeah.
Everywhere you are, most of the same GUIs, especially Blue XP as a sort of universal control plane of sorts, that allows you to access and manage all of those things and deploy additional resources. The reason I asked the question before, though, was like even AWS recently came out and said that they're seeing people a sort of repatriation effort for a lot of workloads. And I'm wondering if you're seeing that. Based in the UK, are you seeing that throughout Europe? Like, where are you seeing the trends happen when it comes to things like, well, we tried that cloud thing, it was cool, but we still kind of want to do some of it on-prem?
Yeah, there's a few different angles to this. So in Europe, we do see more of it. Definitely a lot more sort of private or hybrid data centers. For sovereignty. So the European Union have a lot of stricter rules on data governance, and we have GDPR and those things. And financial sector, data has to stay in the same region. And you can't always get, the cloud isn't in every single country.
Yeah.
No, so sometimes we're seeing it because of those concerns. And I think everyone's heard the story of, is it 37 Signals, DHH?
Yes.
And how they moved out of the cloud for cost savings. The thing is that the economy's changed, right? Since the post-pandemic economy is very different. People are thinking a lot more cost-consciously.
Yeah.
So I see people starting to optimize their workloads and move things around where it makes the most financial sense. So like I was saying before, where we had the average core count, 6, 8, whatever, I can go and buy some servers with large number of cores. The hardware is not the only change as well. Software's changed. Platform engineering has taken place, and there are more platforms out there. Kubernetes has helped people to build platforms across multiple locations. And there's a lot more tooling out there. So I can build something a bit easier than, say, 10, 15 years ago when we had all of our vExperts and all of us out there building FlexPods and other things that took, for their time, a reasonable amount of time to build.
Yeah.
So you've got, an ease of use there now that we didn't have before. You've got access to higher density hardware, lower footprints. That's exactly the same with storage. NetApp said this as well, right? So you've got lower rack density, higher storage footprint, less power consumption. So we've got an appealing set of options for us to say, well, I know this workload isn't going to change. It's going to be data heavy. It's not going to burst. I could run it on premises cheaper, and I'm cost conscious about that.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things we're seeing.
I feel like we could talk about that almost in a theoretical sense for an hour. I think there's so many different angles to attack that sort of to cloud or not to cloud sort of conversation. There's so many moving parts to it, and I feel like that's something companies are still struggling with to an extent. And I think it's up to the cloud providers to prove that value and provide that value to be able to drive the customers to the cloud, but at the same time not drive them away at the same time. So I look at it that way. I want to go back to the hardware for a second, because we did recap the C-Series and the ASA last year, and then we got A-Series and now ASA for this year. We've got them all here on the desk for you guys so you can see them. So we've got the new ASA bezel, the A90 right here. We've got, this is the new A series that you heard about back in May. And Jason over there has the new FAS. It's a bit of a gray. It's chrome almost. Not quite chrome, but it's like a very, very silver gray kind of color. Looks nice. These all look really sharp. Yes, they all do light up officially. So that's not to be worried about. Do you have a favorite? What stands out to you? Are you more Darth Vader or are you more Stormtrooper?
I'm partial to the Darth Vader. Yeah, I'm really partial to the black. I want to see like an Enterprise Edition ARGB upgraded.
Yeah.
I don't mind if that's an extra SKU.
Well, I think we're long overdue to introduce RGB into server racks.
Oh, the data center has been needing RGB for a long time.
Like, you can have your immersion cooling, and you can have your water cooling, mineral oil cooling, and all that stuff. I want some RGB fans.
Yeah.
I want some color in my racks.
It gives you at least 10,000 more IOPS.
Exactly. One of the big things that we got a big surprise at the end of the keynote today, so I hope you guys were paying attention. If you missed it, go back and watch Krish's segment at the end of the keynote, because he brought up something that we've been sort of fairy tale unicorns and rainbows thinking about for a long time. And in full disclosure, it was kind of even gate kept from us because it was such a big deal. They wanted to make sure they got it right. Disaggregated storage systems.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Oh, man. We have been talking about this since I joined the Ateam, so probably 2016, 2017, maybe before that. It's one of those things. It's a huge game changer. We've seen other people in the market do it, but I reminisce back to how NetApp were very thoughtful about their move from spinning disks to hybrid to all flash. They were very thoughtful about the move and the way they wanted to do it, and I think they've probably spent that same amount of time being thoughtful and coming up with something that's really going to work.
Yeah.
So I know it's taken a long time, but I am absolutely amazed to see that it's finally here. And there were some really good discussions there. The opportunities sound endless.
Yeah. I can remember times back in, let's say, when I was at VTME, we would sit around and go, wouldn't it be cool if we could just run VMs on a storage system? Like, we've got all this CPU overhead and all this memory to use. Like, can we just stick like 2 or 3 management VMs on this thing and just let it have direct bus level access to the storage?
Yeah, and I remember having these conversations even about some of the tools that we used to run, right? So the VASA provider or the VSC or whatever else. Like, you got those things. It's like, well, actually, they really are part of the storage. They could just run there. That'd be great. And you kind of got that. This opens up a whole opportunity for all sorts of different things.
Well, we see this a lot in the consumer market, too, if we want to draw any kind of parallel to it. So if you look at I won't name names or anybody, but a lot of the home NAS, consumer home NAS, are sort of multifunction, where you can run containers, you can run VMs, some of the free open source stuff out there, like an Unraid, I'll throw that one out there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's multi-platform. That starts opening up. What are we going to be able to run a Docker instance on a NetApp storage system? Like, we don't know this. I'm not claiming that, but that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, my mind goes there as well, right? Especially with all the discussion the last couple of days around AI and how important data is to AI. If I could run some containers, anything like that, where I've got maybe some analytics going on. The possibilities. We used to run different virtual machines for virus scanning, for example.
Yeah.
Right now, you've got that being so close, more real time. There's that.
I think about things. Could you containerize the individual pieces and parts of ONTAP and spin them up on demand? Like I don't know. Listen, Jason and I are speculating. None of this is announced. Don't take it verbatim. But I look at this as this is a huge inflection point. Not for hardware, but for ONTAP specifically.
Yeah.
And it really excites me around some of the things that we could potentially see come out of ONTAP in the future, regardless of what hardware or what cloud it's running in.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has come through the last, 5 or 6 years of working with the hyperscalers on the first-party solutions. The first-party solutions have really changed the way that the ONTAP team and everyone works on engineering. They've been solving problems in completely different ways because they're not using the hardware appliances in the cloud. They're using someone else's hardware. and they're doing it in different ways, and they're coming up with all these new solutions. And I think that all of that combined learning is now coming back, and that's what we kind of saw at the end of the keynote there, is it's like, actually, we've learned a lot by building all of these other solutions. How can we now make our traditional stuff even better by taking that learning and putting it back in?
Isn't it funny how this works, where it's almost cyclical, where we learned how to do all these things in the 2000s, but then VMware went and showed us how to do it all in this sort of virtual container type of fashion. But then they're like, oh, we can do that too. So we do break stuff out like that. But then the cloud tries to adapt all the things you would do on-prem and make you comfortable so that you'll come do it in the cloud. And then we're building storage systems and compute systems now on-prem that are doing all the things that the cloud enables you to do, so you'll come back to... It's such a up and down kind of ride. If you look at like the last 20 years, I get so much deja vu over the 4 or 5 big waves that we've been through in the last 20 years.
Yeah, technology is very cyclical. It really is. I mean, even if you think of the funniest kind of, we had mainframes, then we didn't. We had virtual desktops and like thin clients and stuff.
Like
then we
terminal
didn't.
servers.
Yeah, terminal servers. Yeah. And we kind of go. And there's also the insourcing, outsourcing is a cycle in technology as well that happens a lot. So yeah, it is very cyclical, and it moves in waves where innovation happens, and those innovations that creates those waves and changes. And the hyperscalers have been a huge innovation point for the last decade, and then hardware's been taking a real, it took a bit of a backseat. Especially with when there was the top of the hype cycle for cloud, and a lot of people weren't buying hardware. But in the background, the research has never stopped.
Yeah.
So things are still moving. And I talk about, you've got Compute Express Link, which is a technology that helps to build out like rack-scale fabrics of compute and memory. You've got advancements in chiplet design. You've got more system-on-chip stuff, so the things that Apple do, ARM, are leading the way. NVIDIA and everything they're doing around DPUs, and it's just, we've got this whole smelting pot of amazing changes that are coming together, and I'm really excited for what the next decade brings when it comes to not just software but hardware as well, and how I can just see us having this, what we really wanted, that ideal hybrid landscape where your workloads can be anywhere, where they're best suited, and NetApp's building that.
All right, so couple more things I wanted to chat with you about. Autonomous ransomware protection. We see it massively here in the U.S. Are you seeing the same thing over in the U.K. and on the EU side?
So as data has become more valuable, the number of people looking to attack it is increasing, and that's a worldwide problem.
Yeah.
We see that. I mean, you can only go back to a few years ago when the big WannaCry attack, one of the biggest, hardest hit people was the UK NHS, right? So yeah, we see it too, and everybody's concerned. Everybody needs. And it doesn't even have to be just ransomware. It can be from software issues. Look at what happened with CrowdStrike.
Right.
A few months ago now.
July, I think.
Yeah, the ability to detect unexpected changes natively, to protect against it, to snapshot.
Yep.
Right, okay, lock it. I don't want anyone to do it. I don't want an admin, nothing. No one can change that. This doesn't smell right. I'm going to protect you from it.
So, Gagan threw out some numbers that said 100, they did it with a third-party agency, 100% precision and 99% recall. So on previous shows and launches that we've done over the last year or so, we've talked about ARP and ARP AI and how precise they have really dialed it in, right? The ability for any sort of anomaly to be detected is just instant snapshot, just in case.
Yeah.
It costs you 150 megabytes, so what? You analyze it, it wasn't really anything you can get rid of. The fact that they're getting 100% precision, that's crazy to me that the AI has, the ML models have gotten that precise to be able to be predictive about it, to the point where it's saving everybody. I've turned on autonomous random protection on my system at home, and it takes about 30 to 45 days for it to really learn the behavior of the system and what it's actually doing and its uses and cycles and things. I haven't obviously gotten a ransomware attack yet, or I would be making videos about that. But I guess I'm curious, where do you see that really being a game changer for companies? Because I haven't really had an experience myself with it, but I can see the value.
It's a game changer in that you no longer have to be reactive.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at the moment, most companies and most solutions out there are, you've got backups, you've got protected backups. So there's a lot of the big players out there, they'll do immutable backups for you and things like that. But they're a reactive thing. You can only go back to them because you know something happened and you're going to have to react to it. So you've already hit the worst. Whereas ARP is more, it's almost proactive because it's so close, right? It's detecting those things with such precision so quickly that it's almost proactive in its response, that it's going, okay, this could be bad, I'm going to protect you from it. And people that get hit with ransomware issues lose millions of dollars an hour. You know, it's the CrowdStrike thing, that not ransomware, but still, it's a good example of how much people were losing. Then there's another one. We're in Vegas. There was one of the casino chains had a big thing, right?
Yep.
And for somewhere where
multiple of them have.
Yeah. For something like that, where you've got literally millions of dollars an hour flowing through the casinos, and you can't take the risks.
It was kind of eerie last year walking through some of the casinos because multiple sites were hit.
Yeah.
It was eerie walking through with all the slot machines turned off because those are 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
You never walk through that, but all of them are off. All of the kiosks are turned off. It's post-apocalyptic in a way when you think about it. So to the way that we've fine-tuned this ARP stuff now, if you have an ONTAP system, turn it on for all of your volumes by default. I know that's not a setting that we don't like to turn stuff on by default like that, but that's one that I will personally recommend for anything that has any data that's of any value to you as an admin, as a user. It's about as least disruptive as I could describe, and at the same time, it's going to save your backside one of these days because it's going to detect something and take a snapshot. And worst case, you have to go in and delete a snapshot. Worst case, you have to go in and recover a snapshot. But you've just saved your company days, if not months, of recovery time and potentially millions of dollars, both in recovery time and lost revenue that you've lost during the whole process. Jason, I'll give you one last thing before we get you out of here. If you could give any one suggestion to NetApp Engineering, if you could get in their ear and say one, because you and I have been doing this a long time, right? Mm-hmm. We've been friends for a long time. We've had lots of healthy, heated discussions.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to NetApp Engineering to do next?
I would start looking at the way that the markets are shifting. So we've got a huge, since Apple made the change to ARM, with their Apple Silicon, the M1
Apple Silicon, yeah.
Apple Silicon, right? So as they move to Apple Silicon, Microsoft have moved over. So the Snapdragon stuff is doing really well. Graviton, amazing. Google Cloud have it. Microsoft Azure have it. Everybody is building these system on chips, right? And there is a huge amount of innovation in that space. So if I could do one thing, I would just look at the options. I'd look at all the options that are out there and say, could we start building a system on a chip that's not just CPU, it's got some GPU, it's got some AI ML cores, it's got, because that's the thing, and it doesn't just have to be an architecture thing. It's not x86 versus IH64. It's the whole, the industry is changing, so there's chiplet design that you can, in the future, you're going to be able to say, I want 10 cores of CPU, I want 20 cores of GPU, I want half a dozen ML engines, and I want this, that, and the other. Custom built storage processor that's, and take that with computational storage disks as well, so they offload some of the work directly to the disks. Kind of that sort of thing together, that's like the utopia of, I can do everything.
So you want to see ARM basically. A system on a chip kind of designs.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be that architecture itself, but that kind of design. And Intel are doing some great work on this as well, where they're bringing in... there's a huge amount of AI offloading in the new Xeon family, for example.
Well, ironically, the hardware part would be pretty trivial.
Yeah.
I think where the lion's share of the workload comes in would be with ONTAP, sort of kind of ONTAP ARM version, if you will. Right.
And just being able to be flexible and move around that as well, and say, okay, there are these different hardware platforms out there. There's these different things we want to take care of. And I like I said before, Compute Express Link or those things, being able to be reactive and move very quickly with the market, that might take some change in the way that ONTAP is built.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Jason, thank you very much for taking some extra time with me to kick things off today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Nick.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff to go over today, so if you don't mind, I got to jump over to my next guest.
Yeah, thanks very much, pal.
Take care, man.